Real golf, real golf talk. This is Play It Where It Lies, a Bash Brothers Media golf show and podcast.
On the team from USA.
Play It Where It Lies. We certainly did this week. I'm John Wayner. He's Hacking Hank. And Hank, I think we got our fill of Irish golf and Open Championship golf, Irish food, pub fare, drinks, all the rest.
I did my best to soak it all in, whether it was watching or drinking along with those Irishmen. It was a fun weekend. And, man, it's hard to believe it's all over.
I know, and hard to believe our major championship season is over, which we'll get to here shortly on Play It Where It Lies. Soak it all in is right. I think I feel about like Shane Lowry feels probably this morning, except I don't have the claret jug and everything else.
Yeah, you know, I tried to celebrate right along with them. Exciting weekend.
Yeah.
Exciting to see Shane. What an event. Yeah. What a celebration.
It was an incredible event, a celebration, and I think really lived up to and surpassed in every way all of the excitement for the Open Championship at Royal Portrush. You're shaking your head.
No,
already.
I'm just shaking my head because it just keeps getting better and
Yeah.
better. It's like each year it seems to think that this Open has just been amazing, and yet another one, and this may have been the best one we've seen on television yet.
But of course, there were difficulties, there were flameouts, there were bombs, there was controversy, there was all different kinds of approaches to the game and the coverage of it, and there's a lot to get to here on Play It Where It Lies.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that the Sunday finish, competitiveness-wise, wasn't, up there compared to some other Sundays at the Open that we've seen. But the fanfare,
I thought the scene and the fanfare and
yeah.
Lowry, and we'll get into that officially here. In our tee shot soon, we'll hand out our Play It Where It Lies awards, some really good ones from this past week. Of course, everybody's favorite sizzling hot segment, Play It, Drop It, Roll It, looking back at all the big stories and controversies from the Open Championship. We'll have our Tough Lies and Punch Out as well at the end of the show. And the Gov, Rick Cleveland's going to join us. Always a treat.
Yeah, excited to talk to Rick, get some good perspective. Always value his opinion on what's happened in sports this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Rick's watched, covered, played golf his whole life, covers it as well as anybody now, and I had a great piece on David Duval and what a story he was and kind of what that says about, the game of the golf and the game that we play, which we're always after here on Play It Where It Lies as well. So let's get into our tee shot. Shane Lowry wins at Royal Portrush, and I thought it was framed really well, Hag and Hank, late Sunday night when they said for the Open to return to Northern Ireland for the first time in 68 years in a very nationalistic, political way, everything that had to do with that, for Darren Clarke to hit the first shot and Shane Lowry to hit the final putt. A Northern Irishman and an Irishman from the South to start it and end it and sort of bookend it all, I thought summed up what a special week it was kind of in two shots.
Yeah, and it's super fitting. Not only was it exciting for the crowd, really amazing to see that sort of hometown lad win it and sort of the uniting of Ireland, which we'll talk about later. One thing I really like is, sometimes when you see a guy win the Open Championship, they have to drink Guinness out of the jug, and it seems, sort of ceremonial.
It couldn't have been more at home for Shane.
Exactly. Watching Shane throw down those Guinness with the rowdy group in the pub, I mean, it just seems so authentic.
It was, and so fitting in so many ways, and Shane was so earnest about it, as all sort of great Irish people are.
Yeah.
The earnesty, the emotion, the celebration, the scenes of Shane at night standing on the table singing and drinking a claret. He's got the claret jug in one hand, and then he sees the pint, and then he reaches down and gets the pint, and he's holding them both up. Yeah. What a great scene it was. I thought, and I want to talk about Shane Lowry. Like, we can't just, but Royal Portrush was as advertised and more. I thought it played as one of the great golf courses and one of the great scenes, again, but the course specifically as a new course in the Open Rota, it blew people away.
I mean, both as a viewer, it was spectacular. As a venue for the game, I thought it was
perfect.
That mix of being difficult yet also gettable.
Really hard. I mean, there were guys that those true Open moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And nothing crazy, right? Nothing unexpected.
Right.
Nothing seemed cheap. We'll talk about the out of bounds stuff later. But the course really set up well. A lot of fun shots. Got to see a lot of cool movement on the golf ball and stuff. But the players raved about it. And that's one of the things, you're always going to hear some criticism, but I mean, people were talking about this is the favorite course they've ever played for a championship. I mean, the praise was effusive, and man,
Yeah.
I thought it was just a 10 out of 10 success at Portrush this weekend.
And when you look where the Open is next year at Royal St. George's on the other end of things, and we'll get into again next year's major champion schedule and what we do now with the majors over here in July. I thought you have a great analogy that I hope you'll bring up in the show. But Portrush all told, and the Irish scene and the raucousness and the wildness of the course, the dunes, the ruggedness, the majesty of it all, just absolutely spectacular. Go ahead.
It was. I'm not as looking forward to much to that sip of tea, that cup of tea they're going to have at the end of Royal St. George's.
Flat Royal St. George's.
Anyway, we'll get to that later.
Most impressive thing about Shane Lowry's win for you?
I mean, it's got to be the fact that he got the job done on Sunday. I mean, to sleep on the lead. Of course, he's famous for blowing his 4-shot lead at Oakmont in the U.S. Open a few years ago, and has haunted him for a long time.
Good point.
It is. It was a big lead, but we have seen bigger leads blown easily, and just the way that he was able to put the hammer down.
In really tough conditions. The conditions that people wanted for Shane Lowry to have to come back to the field, and he shot one over. I mean, there's only one guy who was under par the entire day, I think. And so for Lowry, to do that in those conditions specifically.
In those conditions, and even if you look at the pressure, I mean, you had Brooks Koepka bogeying the first 4 holes. You had Justin Rose shooting 41 on the front 9. JB Holmes shot an 87. That could so easily, with the pressure all of the expectations for Lowry riding on him, that could have easily been Lowry's 87, and what a different conversation. But the mettle that he showed in those tough conditions to persevere and really put up a fantastic round, considering that's what impressed me most.
First major winner. He has won big, though, as I said, won the Irish Open, won a WGC. And we've thrown out Shane Lowry before as kind of a Mark Leishman type, like major game, you know what I mean? Big ball hitter, like has you feel like some class. But Lowry himself woke up on Sunday morning and he said this. And again, you love the earnesty of the Irish players specifically. He said, I woke up wondering if I had what it takes to win a major championship after, the Oakmont thing specifically. I just thought I don't think anyone expected him to win at Oakmont. I don't know that he was ready himself to win, and maybe he had to go through that failure that we talk about a lot. But I think Lowry felt ready to win this one, even though he had Fleetwood and Koepka and everybody else behind him.
He was so earnest in talking about it that I sort of want to take him at his word, and that he did say explicitly that his experience at Oakmont drastically changed how he was able to approach this one. He mentioned the night before Oakmont, he only got 4 hours of sleep, and he spent the whole time trying to not think about golf and try to not think about the win. And he said that didn't work for him. It was, this week he embraced it. He imagined what he needed to do. He imagined himself holding the claret jug, and he said he felt more human, ready to come out there the next day. He knew it was on the line, but he was realistic about what he had to do, and he went and got it done.
I will say one thing about Lowry, though, and like we'll talk with Rick Cleveland with the Duval thing and Rory. We know how fickle the game is, and we don't have to look at the pros. I mean, you and I can look at our game every day, and anyone listening and watching knows what you talk about when you talk about the fickleness of golf. But I thought Lowry said something interesting. He said, I got off to a really bad start. I hit 2 squirrely shots. I'm staring at a 7-footer for bogey. He's staring double bogey in the face on the first hole, and Tommy Fleetwood has a really makeable birdie putt. And Lowry himself said, it was all right there, but I made and Fleetwood missed, and it was a 3-shot swing that potentially was just to 1. And he said, that settled me a little bit. So if that even goes wrong on the first green, maybe it's an entirely different day.
I mean, I think sort of the word for this weekend would be fickle. It is interesting to see how many golfers. We'll talk about Rory. We'll talk about Tiger. We'll talk about JB Holmes. Guys. It is a fickle, fickle game. One hole, one swing to the next, one hole to the next, one tournament to the next. Shane Lowry was close to losing his PGA Tour card a year ago. And
this time a year ago, he split with his caddy and his old team in the Open Championship and said, I don't know if I can do this anymore, like in my life.
So I just think it underscores, as you said, the fickleness of the game, how difficult it is to win, and how razor sharp the margins are on the PGA Tour to go from where he was both last year and on the first tee, and finally holding the claret jug at the end.
Standing on a table in the pub, holding the claret jug, singing with the pint in his other hand. Well, speaking of tough, we'll move to our re-tee. And first of all, like, one of our re-tees should be the picks that we made. Yeah, not so much. We've been pretty solid on the picks. I had Frankie Molinari, who, interestingly enough, almost ended with a top 10. He had a great round on Sunday, and Molinari finished 11th, way higher after barely making the cut.
He's getting his Matt Kuchar on.
Yeah, a little bit. There was a lot of backdoor stuff. But that can happen again on an Open Championship Sunday. Molinari didn't do very well. Your guy DJ was there for a while, and like DJ usually does on the weekend, just kind of goes in reverse. But between Rory Mcilroy and Tiger Woods, you've got 18 majors, 14 for 19, 15 for Tiger, and 4 for Rory Mcilroy. Both of them missed the cut, absolutely bombed out. They were the only picks we got right in our blokes to blow. I want to start with Tiger, though. What was most telling for you about the way that Royal Portrush really just kind of carved him up?
Well, I think it's got to be his comments. Tiger has played poorly before, and even in years past when he played poorly, he still talked about getting his game better.
Right, and I'm there, and I'm close.
He's working. This was a totally different vocabulary from Tiger this week, to talk about limits of his game.
Yeah.
Resigned, exactly, that he couldn't do this and that he wouldn't do that, and this was not possible for him anymore. I thought it was a stark reality check to hear Tiger talk about his load and his
body and his game and his motivation. I think that was sort of the underlying part about all of this. And now, I think you had to be a little off or seeing it the wrong way to have expected Tiger to play last week. I think most people, including myself as the pick and you as well, I mean, it was Tiger and Rory. Both of us were going to pick one or the other. Rory for a much different reason, but Tiger had not played. His game was not sharp. Portrush brutally difficult, especially off the tee. None of it set up for Tiger to win, but I still think it's just a little bit, so much of the mountain was climbed, and, he's sitting at the top a little bit still.
It's really hard to get to the top. It's even harder to stay at the top. So you can do a lot of things to prepare your game, and Tiger talked about peaking at the right time. And I think what showed up today is that he was not making that attempt.
Yeah.
Essentially, he was sort of...
Yeah, it looked like it. Yeah, like he didn't really... I mean, he kind of made a run on Friday, but it didn't really look like he had much of an interest of fighting it.
Well, I mean...
And you can't blame him.
Well, you can't blame him, but it was a fantastically difficult course. The Open Championship is probably always the toughest test in golf. And if your game is not razor sharp, you have no chance. And his game was not, and he had no chance.
And I just think one big difference is I think Tiger knows now, because like the razor sharp thing is an interesting word, because for a long time Tiger could make his way around the course and win with his B game, win even with his C game by fighting and grinding and posting a score, as Tiger said, and relying on the Tiger factor, if you want to call it, or just the fact that the rest of the tour just wasn't on a level where they were going to leave him if he could scrap it together. I also think Tiger knows from experience now that if he even fights, a B and C game, like, these guys are going to leave him. They'll just leave you. Like, on tour now, even if you're Tiger, like, that is what's different, than Tiger. It's not what happens with the A game. It's that he could go out and win tournaments with his B game, even his C game, getting it around on certain courses in certain places. Now, guys like Fleetwood and Koepka and, Shane Lowry even, they're just going to leave you behind.
See, at those times that Tiger was doing that, he knew that the A game was out there. He was trying to hold on.
Right.
He was trying to hold on and find it. And that's why we talk about this week, he's resigned because he knew that A game didn't exist. That A game was never going to come. He was not going to get there. So when he was starting B, the only way for him to go was worse. I think that's the difference, that he just... That fight is no longer necessary because, as you said, if he brings his B game from day one, he's gone, he's left behind, and that's what we're looking at this week. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, I hope it's not what we're looking at in most tournaments going forward for Tiger?
I think with Tiger, again, you expect that he'll have a lot of time to get his body healthy, to tune up in the right way.
Yeah.
And I would expect by April of next year, that's certainly Tiger's idea going into Augusta, is that he would be primed to
Real quick,
contend again at Augusta.
How interested are you seeing in Tiger competing in these FedEx tournaments? You know, because part of me thinks, he has all the way until Augusta next week to get right. But now he's talking about he wants to play all 3 tournaments in a row.
I don't think Tiger or anything. I mean, I hate, like, as the host of this golf show to be like, I have nothing for, like, the FedEx Cup playoffs. But, like, yeah, kind of, maybe a little bit. Tiger's certainly in contention. It'll make it more exciting.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as any sort of significant mark on the Woods narrative, right? Like what he does in the playoffs. Like the Tour Championship and his first win in forever was a big deal. I think if he goes out and, what are we talking about? Like he wins in Boston, you know what I mean? The mean streets of Boston.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, in the mean streets of Boston, exactly. If he were to win one of these tournaments, I think would be a referendum on this discussion that we're having right now. Let's pump the brakes
it would break
on
Sam
Tiger.
Snead's record, just in case you didn't know from the Golf Channel.
Right, from all the promos that they were running relentlessly during the broadcast.
Win buddy's like 11 over par on the course.
But yeah, I mean, if he played and competed and won one of those, I think it would really back people off on the Tiger's done line of thinking. But yeah, I mean, I'd much rather see a bunch of other guys go at it. It'll be exciting even without him.
In our Open Championship preview show, we talked about last week Rory McIlroy's perceived home course advantage or not, and you and I were both very adamant that not only is it not an advantage, it's a disadvantage because simply of the pressure and the expectations. And you think you're at home. It's as far from your routine as you can possibly get when you're at home and in that environment instead of just the weekly routine of the PGA Tour. And so I thought in every way, Rory McIlroy's start, the first hole, the end, and the McIlroy's comments and the way he handled it all were so remarkable and I think fascinating to kind of take in. But at the end of the day, I thought everything about Royal Portrush and the scene and the conversation affected and led to McIlroy's first round 79. I'm staying with that.
I don't see that there's any question that affected him heavily. I mean, it was a tale of two golfers once the pressure was off. But what's interesting to me is that
it was a tale of two golfers, except that that show, like how bad he wanted it on Friday, proves just how much it was in his mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Like how bad and how emotional he was, and how much he said, "I felt it, and I wanted more than anything to be here for these 2 days for these fans." Tells you how much it meant to him in the first place.
Well, it was sad for that reason, but and obviously we all wanted to see him make the cut, and we all wanted to, quite frankly, wanted to see him be right there on Sunday. I will push back to say that McIlroy has done this before on other courses.
Yes.
This is not the only time.
Not only has he done it before, it's a recurrent story. 1-2 holes here, and
yes, he had the added pressure, but McIlroy has always shown this propensity, to say harshly, to be a bit of a basket case, which is to show that he can shoot the low round and the high round in the same tournament. So, the interesting thing for me, or it reminded me about what sports does really well, is that sometimes it's not only the winner's story that are the best stories.
Right, it's the loser's locker room.
Rory's attempt and failure, the humanity that showed us, the connection with the fans, and also connections with the viewers, with you as a person and as a golfer, I thought was as poignant and as memorable from this weekend as Shane Lowry's magnificent win.
It is amazing how McIlroy, even in this absurd drought of 5 years when he has routinely not gotten it done, has just continued to grow in his stardom and his popularity and this idea as the ambassador in the game, even in a way that Spieth was never approaching, in a way that Brooks Koepka never will. Yeah. And maybe Henry, precisely because McIlroy has shown that fallible side in the way he's handled it. But I thought it was punctuated this weekend just how much I hate the term moves the meter, just how much he connects and is an inspiring and likable figure for everyone.
I think it's obvious that some people just do that more than others. I mean, part of it is his boyish charm. Part of it is he's been right there from the beginning and everyone was so excited about him. But how many years do you think we're going to have to wait till you see Brooks Koepka shed a tear in an interview?
Mm-hmm.
How long are we going to have to wait before Tiger Woods, it'll never happen, before Tiger Woods embraces the mantle of a hometown and does it for somebody other than himself?
Right. In a way that's not Tiger, but in a way that's not corporate and scripted and has that feel to it.
I just mean that there's something, and it's always been there. There's just an intrinsic something about Rory that makes him connect with people. Part of it is his earnestness. Part of it is his just emotion on the golf course.
As a sort of a poor regular kid. I mean, he is not sort of the country club kid in any way. He's not sort of the big time, athlete. Go ahead.
Well, we want him to be those things.
Right.
We really want him to be those things.
Well, let me put it another way then. I just think he is so so obviously and tangibly human.
Yeah.
I think that he's so conflicted, and we can relate to that. McIlroy is immensely cocky, but also very humble and sort of doubts himself. He is, eminently, as I said, sort of relatable, but also very polished, and he's earnest and honest. But you know what I mean?
He's all of those things. I do think it's super a major part of it that we have seen him go through so many essentially train wrecks. With all of those things that we love about him. We have seen him have so much pain.
Yeah.
We have seen him go through so many awful moments that we have shook our heads and wanted to bury our...
Yeah, this sort of nowhere to hide moments.
Yeah, he's had so many...
At the Masters, memorably, in the final round, and this one, the first round at Portrush.
And so many of those that I just think that all comes together in a package that makes you love him, makes you root for him, and makes you miserable right along with him when he does that Rory McIlroy thing.
Yeah.
So a great story from the weekend, not the way that we had hoped, but maybe, as you pointed out,
even more poignant.
Well, and also maybe what we have expected, with that amount of pressure and Rory's tendency to get emotional and drawn into all that.
Yeah, I think everybody more than ever. I'm just more enamored and sort of drawn to Rory McIlroy and the way he plays the game and goes about himself.
Man, I'll tell you what, it has been a long time, right? It's been a really long time. He's going to win one sometime soon, and it's going to be...
Yeah, he's going to win one sometime.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
And even in the way that he's so uncharacteristically bad sometimes. It is like a 9-hand. You're like, how did I hit that shot? It's like, where does that... I mean, even in the final round on Friday, to absolutely light up the course and be razor sharp, and then right when he had it in his hands on 17, the chance to actually make that final birdie and get to the cut line. He's got 84 yards to the green after he hammers a drive. He's just made one on 16. The crowd, the grounds are foaming. I mean, it was as exciting as any sort of, Sunday duel that we've seen at the Open Championship. And he pulls a flop shot into the bunker from 84 yards. And it was just one of those head in your hand moments. And Rory put his head in his hand. And pro golfers don't do that a lot. Even his misses on the course and the way he fails on the course is exciting and relatable. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And
it's not like he has bad putting days. No, he does dumb shit sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's what?
I mean... And unfortunately, it's getting to be his reputation that when there's no pressure, he'll shoot a 65. When the pressure is there, he'll either
I mean, because who didn't see that coming?
Yeah. That he got close and then he misses the shot. So it's unfortunate. I would have loved to seen more Rory victories in my lifetime. Hopefully, he'll get it together at the next one.
Let's hand out some Play It Where It Lies awards before we wrap up this first segment. I tell you what, man, we're we talked a lot about the Open this weekend, and then here we are, probably about a half an hour first segment.
Yeah.
But
this is going to be a 4-hour show, right?
I think so.
Okay,
so
good,
you guys, if you want to go refill your Guinness, you know what I mean, order some fish and chips from the local pub and go pick it out. We'll still be here. No, real quick.
The problem is that Hack and Hank's not on the other side of the camera.
Right,
doing
exactly.
This
we're just totally
time, right?
unfettered and unmonitored.
That's the main problem.
The gent, we need you back. I don't know if Stewart's coming back from Hungary. I haven't heard from the gent. He may just be holed up. He may be building his golf course over there. I don't know. Wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't put it past him. He's going to come back with a story, though.
Wouldn't put it past him. Let's hand out some Play It Where It Lies awards, as we do every week, a lot of times in golf, but certainly in life as well. Hack and Hank, what do you got for us?
Okay, well, it's sort of what we've been talking about. My Play It Where It Lies award this week is going to go to Major Golf in Ireland. And now note I don't say Ireland or Northern Ireland, because one of the things that was most exciting about this week and why it gets the award is, one, I thought the return to major golf, namely the Open in Ireland, was a fantastic success. If you look at it from both ticket sales, which were records, television ratings, which were surprisingly high considering the lack of Tiger Woods and major names in the end. But the scene, the fans, the decorum was reportedly very high despite all of the amount of drinking. The singing, the course was all spectacular. So big kudos to Ireland for a fantastic return. And also I saw many excellent articles and comments about what a Irishman winning in Northern Ireland did for a place that has struggled with division between the countries for so long. It was a big, rousing success for the country itself to come together in Irish people being proud of Northern Ireland and its golf courses and golfers, and Northern Ireland being proud of an Irishman winning it, and the whole country rejoiced.
Yeah, and you know, as they talk about just Irish golf as a whole, to add Shane Lowry as a real major champion and a major player to go with Rory Mcilroy and Graham McDowell and Darren Clark, and to say, hey, you know, as much as it's exploded, there's even more guys. And I saw some interesting comments. I think maybe in some ways we make a little much of that in terms of the division in Northern Ireland and Ireland right now within golf and what golf does to unite it. But I think that needs to be said. But I think it's a fair point, and certainly was a lot of the narrative. I'll move on and give up my Play It Where It Lies award. And I don't know how you don't go with David Duval here. We're going to talk with Rick Cleveland about it later on in the show, Mississippi Sports Hall of Famer.
This is not a tongue-in-cheek award.
This is a real award because ultimately, I mean, you talk about Play It Where It Lies, to go shoot 91 and finish it and put your score up and then face the music, as he did. Talk about ultimate Play It Where It Lies moment to make the 14 and have to go through all of that and lose a ball and then go all the way back. But it wasn't the fact that Duval shot 91. It was the fact that he was so accountable and stand up about it. And Duval said himself, I'm a little conflicted. I know this is almost embarrassing. I know that this is almost... that maybe I should have withdrawn. He said, but, you know, when you're a professional golfer and you make it in the Open Championship, you tee off, you post your score. Not only that, but after all of that, to then face the criticism, to have to face the music, but then turn around and shoot a pretty respectable 70, 78, you know, the next day, which is a 13-shot difference. Pretty much the same thing Rory did to go from 79-65 to a 14-stroke difference. I thought... again, this award is all about, like, not hitting it in the tough spot. It's what you do when you're in that tough spot. I mean, Duval in his right mind never thought he'd shoot 91. I'm sure he did. He probably didn't think he would make the cut, but to go shoot 91, okay. How he handled it, though, how accountable he was about it, what an example he set. He acknowledged that, look, I know that there's going to be some consternation about this. And then he went out and proved the next day that, you know what, like, I deserve to be here. Like, that 91 can't happen to anybody, because he went out and beat a lot of the guys the next day. Big shout out to David Duval. I thought it was a nice moment for him.
Yeah, loved it. Loved seeing him bounce back.
Play it, drop it, roll it. The hot sizzling segment coming up with JB Holmes is he's not gonna escape this show. Don't worry about it. Lee Westwood as well. We'll take a quick look to next year's major championship schedule and see our thoughts on that one. We're brought to you by Gulf States Golf Cards, gsgolfcars.com, Deerfield Golf Club as well. Friends of the program, friends of the show. Visit them at Gluckstadt in Madison. This is Bash Brothers Media. Play it where it lies.
Golf puts you in tough spots. We play it where it lies.
And we're back at Play It Where It Lies.
Where'd we go?
We took a break.
We did.
We took a short break.
Was there Guinness involved in that break?
I wish there was way more Guinness.
I'm ready to drink more Guinness. Like, that was a revelation from last week, is like... It don't have to be in Ireland to drink it. I may need to like addendum the statement that I made last week, which is like, nah, if I'm in Ireland, I'll drink Guinness. Nah, I drank a bunch of Guinness this week.
Yeah,
it was good.
And I told you that you were flatly
right,
wrong.
Hank. You were right.
I mean, yeah.
What else is new?
But I do. I actually took umbrage at the fact this week that I saw so many people texting like, "Oh, this Guinness stuff is really good." Like, "Oh, I gave Guinness a second shot." I'm like, where have you been?
And no, you're
Guinness
right.
has always been really good. So yeah,
it was a reawakening for me. It was an awakening for some others. But I'm awake now and ready to go pour some more up, man.
Right,
so let's finish.
Okay, so we're gonna do play it, drop it, roll it.
Play it, drop it, or roll it?
What do you got?
Okay, first up, we've got Lowry's win, catapulting his career.
I'm going to drop it. I'm usually more often than not on this that golfers are who they are. They stay who they are. Occasionally you have a breakthrough, a guy really just like a Phil Mickelson knocking on the door. He breaks through. It's a watershed moment. More often than not, guys remain the same players. Sergio Garcia, Dustin Johnson are two, even in recent memory, that said, oh, they'll open the floodgate. No. Same golfer. You just happen to make a putt. The other guy happens to miss. It's golf. I think that Shane Lowry is a nice player. He's a really good player. I think he's a Ryder Cup type player, a guy with major game. But do I see him all of a sudden catapulting to the elites? No, I think he will remain. And again, not to demean it, but he will just join that long list of guys who have won one major, who played well enough to win. But do I see Lowry as like a future star on a different level? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I agree. I'm also dropping it. He's going to join that long list of guys right now. Mm-hmm. He's going to join that long list of guys who have won major and then are out there competing. And, we'll see what happens. But hard to see him running off a big
and
streak.
Again, it's just, we can go with normal. Justin Thomas and Jimmy Walker. I mean, the guys who have won one major, and Justin Rose is another one.
It's no knock on Lowry,
right.
No detriment
just
to Lowry
game.
to say that a win doesn't catapult his career. The PGA is tough.
Sure.
It's going to continue to be tough. He's going to have to continue to scrap for his place in the spotlight.
I love this. J.B. Holmes, the human pace car, affected Brooks Koepka's Sunday.
I'm going to play it with a caveat.
Okay, that means you're not going. You should roll
No,
it.
I'm going to play it because
okay.
I do think J.B. Holmes affected
Okay.
Koepka Sunday. I think that Koepka was perturbed. He made it clear that he was perturbed. He bogeyed the first 4 holes. The fastest golfer with the slowest golfer. As a fast golfer myself, it would be a nightmare getting paired with somebody really slow.
Wait, what?
But I want to flip.
Whoa, can we rewind that, Josh Clegg?
Yeah.
You woke me up there for a second.
Yeah. I mean, well, when
fast
we
golfer.
play together, I'm always ready to play. I'm always ready to hit. You're checking your scorecard and your alignment and your grip and your back off.
You're fast because you get to 6 and you're still like in like the
Look,
by the 150
ready
marker. You
golf
just pick
is
it up.
not about scoring the lowest
You're right.
score.
You're right, and ready golf is
being
what
ready.
Koepka was talking about with J.B. Holmes.
Okay,
go ahead.
so I do think it affected Koepka, but I want to flip it a little bit. Although I'd be interested to hear your opinion.
All right.
I actually think that J.B. Holmes and Koepka's irritation affected J.B. Holmes more than it affected Koepka.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
I think that we're going to have to really watch how J.B. Holmes is able to respond from all of this spotlight and all of this talk about his slow play. Mm-hmm. I think that he got with Koepka with his visible irritation, with his rushing and his
Koepka
playing.
is an intimidating presence who's the world number one now and has all kinds of clout.
And everybody knows about the Koepka arm throws and the eye rolls and everything like that. It is so hard to play golf when your playing partner is giving you negative vibes. And when someone is trying to get you to change your routine, man, that's really tough. I mean, I don't think there's any question. Yeah, Koepka played
It did
bad.
affect J.B. Holmes, but that still sounds like a J.B. Holmes problem.
It does sound like a J.B. Holmes problem. So I'm just saying, you asked me, did J.B. Holmes affected Koepka Sunday? I'm going to play it, but I'm also note that I think that J.B. Holmes' 87 is a result of Koepka giving him the business all day long.
Buried beneath an avalanche of strokes. If ever there was a time for the Gary McCord line in Tin Cup when he hits the shot out of the bar, it's buried.
And say, because I think JB's kind of a likable guy despite the slow play.
Okay,
what do you think? Go ahead.
I'm gonna play it entirely. But it's a good point in the group dynamic because I'll say, like, we've all been there. Golf, you're so in your head, and a lot of times if your glove isn't in the right place, if you've got a different belt on, if you're playing a ball with a high number, I mean, let's be real. Even for the pros, and this when you talk to pros, like I talk with Allie Thompson about this a lot. They're not exempt or immune, and they fall victim to the same sort of psychological terrors that amateur golfers feel. Sometimes you get on the range and like the club just feels like a rake, or sometimes some guy in the group behind you or the pace of play or your playing partner gets to you. And so, but it is a good point on the other side that as much as sort of, you can affect someone else, you can, like, how many times we've been like, oh, I'm slowing my partner down. Right. Oh, there's guys behind me waiting, and it just makes you even worse and you get in your head. But J.B. Holmes is a pro golfer. JB Holmes is a Ryder Cupper. Now, Brooks Koepka is too. And so for both of these, it's like even Koepka, it's like forget about what JB Holmes is doing. But I think that it definitely did affect Koepka. I don't think there's any question about it. Whether or not Koepka should have let that affect his game, I think is a more fair question. But yeah, when you've got visible signs of Koepka turning around and shaking his head and putting his head in his hands, and you know how it is. It's one thing you start birdie. Yeah. But as soon as from the first tee, he took a minute when he had 24 hours to think. Paul Azinger loves JB Holmes. JB Holmes went to the Ryder Cup in 2008 and got some huge wins for Paul Azinger, and Azinger lit him up on the first tee. Then he's changed his clubs on his re-tee and has to hit another one. So Koepka already, and then Koepka makes bogey on one, and he's already in a terrible place. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
They're both already in a terrible place. So, I think it affected both of them. And I just think that point, that question of your playing partner dynamic on the PGA is not one that is discussed enough. Because we know that privately or publicly, some golfers love playing with some people, some golfers hate playing with people. It's not always apparent on TV, but I bet if you ask PGA players very candidly, they would tell you that who their playing partner is makes a huge difference in how they play that round that day.
That's what's exciting about Koepka's ascendance and his sort of evolution into being able to say what he feels. That's how I think what was cool is that Koepka will speak on those things. Koepka doesn't give two shits about the decorum and, the gentleman's game. Not in the same way, you know what I mean? Like, or put it this way, he's not afraid to break down some of those walls and say things like when he said Sergio Garcia acted like a child earlier this year. Koepka 2 years ago feels that, but he can't say it. But now, where he is, I think what was so juicy about it was just that Koepka kind of willing to break the unwritten rules and call out this clown like in public.
It was awesome. Of course, we love it. And might I add, one of the first few reasons I'm finding a reason to like Brooks.
Brooks
Koepka.
is getting better. Brooks is definitely getting better.
Well, it's a good point because earlier this season, Eduardo Molinari made some news on Twitter talking about slow play. How much did that move the needle? Not at all, because it's Eduardo Molinari popping off on Twitter. When Brooks Koepka, your 5-time major winner, 4 in the past 2 years, wins, people pay attention. He said it from a final group on Sunday, and it made major waves.
JB is the slowest player on tour. It was already a story when he won the Genesis Open. The guy, he's plumb bobbing his long irons and stuff. But I said with Molinari, it's interesting you bring that up. That was my issue with Molinari is like, but don't be this Twitter warrior. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to put out a list and out everybody. I said with Eduardo, get on TV, say it to their face. That's how it's really going to change. Like JB will play a lot different, I think, if he's in a final round next time with Koepka. And that was Brendan Porath, who was on the show last week, actually. Brendan Porath wrote sort of the big column that's going around on Koepka's criticism. He was saying, this is uncomfortable, but this is what it's going to take to actually change it, is players making players uncomfortable. Not on Twitter, not with some list. Brooks Koepka put Buddy on blast.
Yeah, and they're going to be
during the round. He pointed at the...
I got it. And believe me, as sensitive as PGA Players Pro, they see and feel all of that.
Yeah,
JB was feeling that.
Was
feeling that heat on the first tee box. It's awesome. And now they're going to see each other in the locker room. Yeah. To your point, they're going to see each other in the locker room.
Maybe even in the Ryder Cup.
Maybe even the Ryder Cup and be paired against each other. And Koepka's going to live by those comments, and JB's going to have to live by his slow play. So maybe something.
JB will not be seeing too many Ryder Cup teams, though, if he shoots 87 on Sunday.
It hurt. It did hurt a little bit.
I like JB, man. I hate to make him sort of a whipping boy in a pinata this week. It's easy.
He has been unfairly a whipping boy. He is. People say he's the slowest. I think that may be a little bit of a reputation on social media. I'd like to see the actual numbers and super. He didn't
do himself any favors, though, shooting 87.
Any favors, but let's move on from JB. Okay. Another question here. Play it, drop it, roll it. The Open Championship broadcast.
I'm going to roll this one because typically, again, with the scene and the NBC coverage all week and with the Golf Channel, what it looked like on TV was great. Obviously, you got so many of the great packages. I thought there was so much great features done, so many great features on the history and everything that we talked about last week. Faraday had a great one. Golf Channel did a good job. I just was really dismayed and deterred by the number of commercials, and like maybe that's a first world problem, kind of like it's TV in 2019, but I saw other people saying this as well, especially with the early parts of the coverage, which, let's face it, a lot of people were watching. I mean, I stayed up, I think, on Friday night to watch it, and I'm up at like 2 a.m, and it would just go to commercials every 3 minutes. You'd see 3 shots and 4 commercials. I don't know. And so that's why I'm going to roll it. I thought everything was all good, but that balance is a big one to strike in golf. I think Fox does it really well. One of the networks does like, okay, last hour here, we're not going to show any commercials. Am I old man at the clouds on this one?
You are not.
Okay.
I am going to drop this.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly. Let's talk about what they showed. They showed features. Mm-hmm. They showed course profiles. They showed fanfare, crowd shots, and commercials. Where was the golf? Mm-hmm. Man, I felt like we were done a disservice. I think that these broadcasts owe it to us to show more golf. Now, whether it's less commercials, whether it's showing a wider variety of players, whether it's showing less J.B. Holmes plumb bobbing, whatever they have to do, I need to see more golf. Yeah. I need to see more shots. I need to see, maybe it's like the commercials were awful. And as a person who's always watching on stream these days, the same 4 Rolex commercials over and over and over again were awful. But I just think we're not seeing enough golf. There were so many players who disappeared from the broadcast. You see Tony Finau 2 shots in a round. They didn't
who was third place, by the way?
They didn't. Jordan Spieth, when he's making his big charge, they didn't catch him to the 14th hole. There are so many players. I mean, show me one Miguel Ángel Jiménez shot. Like, I know he's not competing, but show me one of those. Show me David Duval out there. Like,
I would have loved to have seen a lot of the carnage from the 91.
I just think it's so unfortunate that they have these storylines. They pick their 6 guys. They seem to show every shot of 4 to 6 guys. I'm not even agreeing with them on which 4 guys they show. I want to see more golf, more golf shots.
And I think that is it's a big conversation these days.
It could be so
TV
fun.
golf.
It could be moving fast. It could be, and part of it is features. Man, their features are great, but they do, as you said, they come out a commercial, they run the feature, they do the hits with the announcers, then they show a couple of golf.
And Hicks,
So it's just. Man, I'm dropping it big time. I mean, it's good coverage. The features are good. The broadcasters are good. Not enough golf.
I'm with you. And I'll give you an example. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Again, like, we're not naive. Like, we would go to commercial right the hell now if we had more sponsors. You know what I mean? Like, me and you, like, we're not naive. You understand that to see this in the first place, sponsors have to be a part of it. But you and I have experienced the other side, watching the Open Championship in the UK, in BBC, where there's not a single freaking commercial. It is 7 hours unadulterated, nonstop golf.
It's about striking a balance, as you know. I mean, and so, yes, I understand, but we have seen better broadcasts. We've seen less commercials. By the time I've seen my 4th Rolex commercial, I'm still sure that I'm not going to buy one. So the rest of the weekend it just sort of seems crazy. But I understand why they do it. Didn't like it.
We talked about Tony Finau. He finished 3rd. Tony Finau is criminally underrated. Play it, drop it, roll it. I'm using the phrase from No Laying Up. They used that term, criminally underrated. Tony Finau is criminally underrated.
Tony Finau is criminally underrated? No, he's not. I'm dropping this in a big time way. Really? Do you want me to read off? First off, Tony Finau's biggest win was on the Big Break back in 2009. Tony Finau is not criminally underrated. What has he ever won? Okay, Tony Finau has won. Do you want me to do this? Or
Yeah, I do, because I'm about to hit you with some on the other side, because you're wrong.
I'm wrong?
Yeah.
No, I'm not wrong. Tony Finau is definitely criminally overrated.
Whoa!
He won the Big Break. Okay. He has, okay,
big tournament.
UK, you ready for this? He has won 1 championship on the PGA Tour. He won the 2016 Puerto Rican Open against Steve Marino.
Big time competition.
Okay. He beat Steve Marino in a playoff opposite of a WGC event when nobody else was in the field. That's his one.
It was just him and Steve just playing match play for 4 days.
That's his one win on tour. So, like, how can anybody be underrated? He's had a couple of finishes near the top or whatever, but like he hasn't won anything. his biggest claim to fame.
Yeah, but there's a lot.
No,
but what has John Rahm won?
No, but I'm saying.
What has Ricky Fowler won? Ricky Fowler's won 5, 6 friggin' times.
Yeah, he's won. So Finau's won one time. Fowler won the Players' Championship. Finau won the Puerto Rican Open and dislocated his ankle at Augusta.
And played pretty well there.
Yeah, he played pretty well. So I'm saying. So Tony Finau plays pretty well. Okay, I'll give you he plays pretty well.
All right. His third top 5 in the last 2 years. His 5th top 10 in the last 8 majors.
Hey, wait, say that again?
5th top 10 in the last 8 majors. That's the last 2 years.
That's salty.
5 top 10s in the last 2 majors. That is more than Rory McIlroy, Ricky Fowler, Justin Rose, Jordan Spieth, and Justin Thomas. Tony Finau is in a much different class than people want to put him in. And I think Tony Finau, his breakthrough is coming soon. He will win big. When you look at what he's done over the last 2 years, the fact that he's not put into the same pedestal with, I'll give you guys who haven't won, who are still really regarded up there with your John Rahms, with your Ricky Fowlers, with your Tommy Fleetwoods and all of that. I think Finau.
But see, all those guys are overrated. That's my point. All of those guys are overrated. John Rahm, way overrated.
Yeah.
These guys, even if Tony Finau wins a major, sometime soon, how many majors does that give him?
Yeah,
it gives him 1, and it adds him to a list of about 35 other golfers who have won one major. And so what? He doesn't have.
And that's why I'm giving you the body of work here.
Yeah. Well, body of work.
5 top 10s in the last 8 majors.
Yeah. Okay. So there's probably a bunch of other guys who have had a stretch where they almost won some tournaments and almost won some big ones. It does not, to me, mean that you're underrated. He's appropriately rated.
He's way better than Brandt Snedeker.
Right now, but Brandt Snedeker went through that period of time where he finished up near the top of the Masters and he flashed in the PGA. Was he criminally underrated at those period of time?
No.
So I'm saying Tony Finau's having the same.
He wasn't, but
Tony
Finau is.
Finau's,
that's what I mean, because he's way better than Snedeker.
Let me tell you who Finau. I'm going to drop a name for you. You remember Hunter Mahan?
Yeah, of course.
Tony Finau for me right now is Hunter Mahan.
See, he's
5 years
better than
ago.
Hunter Mahan. He hits the ball 9 miles.
Yeah, currently Finau is better than Hunter Mahan, but I'm saying there was a period of time when guys like Steve Marino, who we mentioned, guys like Hunter Mahan had a 2 or 3 year period where they flashed repeatedly in big time events. They never won any tournaments, and then they went their own way. How is Tony Finau any different than those guys?
Well, for instance, I think him compared to Justin Thomas. JT's got the major, but Finau's probably been the better player the last 2 years.
You telling me Tony Finau is better than Justin Thomas?
Yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah, without winning a major?
Yeah, I kind of am.
Even though...
That's the point. That's the point. It's you win the one major, and it's all of a sudden it puts you in a stratosphere.
Don't believe.
Really.
This is a don't believe your eyes and ears type of thing
it's
here.
That's the point. It's we let the major win or not define who, and then we put guys again, the one you put your Keegan Bradleys and Webb Simpsons and Darren Clarkson.
I don't have it in front of me. How many tournaments has Justin Thomas won?
Probably more than the big break.
More than one,
All right,
come
fair
on.
enough.
Get this guy Tony Finau. I love Tony Finau. But get this underrated nonsense out of here.
Lee Westwood, Golf Hall of Fame.
You go first here.
I like Lee so much. And I don't think that the major championship should be the only or the paramount even standard when it comes to getting in the Hall of Fame. So that would be a case for Lee Westwood. And I think that how we used to talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame and just sort of, are you a superstar? Are you a household name? Did you have a long stretch where you were one of the dudes on tour? Westwood was all of those things. But this other part of me wants to maintain our standards of all Hall of Fames really high and wants to push back on all this dilution of guys getting in the Hall of Fame, whether it's baseball or golf, because they hit a certain number or not or don't. This is a tough one, but I'm going to drop it. I'm going to say, as much as Lee Westwood, I think, is one of the great gentlemen in the game, and his story was fun. The 0 for a million in majors matters. He did.
I think
win.
he's 0 for 40.
I think he's 0 for like 80 something.
Yeah, he's 0 for 80. You're right. Yeah.
I think the not actually getting it done in the major combined with, again, he won a lot on the European Tour. It's closer. You know what I mean? Like Westwood is like a Hall of Fame golfer more than some guys who are in the Hall of Fame, but he shouldn't actually get in. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay, so let me give you some notes here.
Okay.
Westwood won 24 times on the European Tour.
Okay, that's a lot.
That's a lot of wins. That's 8th all-time on the European Tour. Okay. So if you're going off a European Tour, 8th all-time in the wins, that probably gets you into Hall of Fame. How about this? He has 12 top 5s in majors. That's salty. He's got 3 second-place runner-up finishes in majors.
But did he win the big break?
He did not. And I am dropping this.
Okay.
Lee Westwood is the Harold Baines of golf.
Harold Baines.
Harold Baines, who was just
that. Who's just on the outside.
who was just voted in to the Baseball Hall of Fame this year, and it's an atrocity that Harold Baines was led into the Hall of Fame, and it would be an atrocity if Lee, love him, but it would be an atrocity if Lee makes it into the Golf Hall of Fame. No,
I respect that take. I respect it.
I don't know the Golf Hall of Fame well enough to know the thresholds for those guys. So probably 24 wins on the European Tour gets them in.
They say now it's like, you know, they had for a while, like Fred Couples is a great example. Like for a while it was you had to win 2 majors and 15 wins. Couples only has 1 major, but because he's Freddie Couples, you know, he had that capital, the clout, whatever you want to call it, you know, like Couples is kind of the sort of, I think, the poster child right now for the discussion around the Hall of Fame.
Well,
and a guy like, like Colin Montgomery isn't even like Montgomery. Yeah. You know, despite having not won a major, was an all-time great golfer.
Well, I think it's accurate, and I do think that my Harold Baines comparison continues to work here because what you're talking about is a guy who's right on the edge.
I didn't expect to get a Harold Baines reference in this show, but I like it.
But I mean, they're talking about guys who are right on the edge. They are the question.
Tim Raines,
they are
Andre
right
Dawson.
there. I mean, Lee Westwood. He's been a Ryder Cup stalwart. He's played in more Ryder Cups than just about anybody else. He has a pretty good record at the Ryder Cup. Certainly a great team record. So he's right there. I agree. Fred Couples. I mean, he is right on the razor.
I know. I was so in for Team Lee this week.
I love Lee Westwood, man. I really do.
I know. I want you know, and Westwood is a great example of, you know, we're so drawn to guys who are like obviously unique. Whether they're, you know, a minority, a Tony Finau or Tiger Woods, whether they're Ricky Fowler and, you know, have their panache or whatever. And then we see other guys like Lee Westwood and Webb Simpson as like stiff and kind of robotic. But just because they're like, let's say just because they're sort of white and normal looking doesn't mean they're not really interesting people. And like Webb Simpson, from what I understand and what you read is that. And certainly Lee Westwood, when you look at his sort of full life, is that way.
You know why? You know why that is for Lee? Because it's similar to Fred Couples. It's because over time he has continued to endear himself to fans and to the golf world as we've gotten to know him better.
Yeah, he's aged well.
He's aged well in the same
just
sort of
like
way.
His wines.
But in the same way that Fred Couples, that there are guys now who will go to the mat talking about Fred Couples was their favorite golfer of all time. There are so many people, particularly Englishmen, who will tell you that Lee Westwood is their favorite golfer of all time, and he has sort of established that over time. So he's right on the fence, man. I'll tell you.
Good to see him.
He's going to be back at Augusta next year, thanks to his top 10 finish this week.
And you know, I go back to the thing I was watching the replay of the Open Championship that Phil Mickelson won at Muirfield in 2013. Was, I mean, if ever there was a time where you thought Lee, because that was at the end of like that 5-6 year run where it felt like Westwood was in the top 5 almost every Saturday and Sunday for all of the major championships. But at Muirfield, he had a 2-shot lead in that final round, and if anybody was kind of victimized one final time by a great in the game in a Phil Mickelson, it was sort of Westwood at Muirfield. So that was tough to look back at Lee at Muirfield. That felt like it was finally going to be his day. You remember that? It felt like it was finally going to be Westwood's time.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for him wholeheartedly then. I'll be rooting for him in every tournament he plays in since then. It was exciting to see him compete. If it hadn't have been for Shane Lowry, he might have had a real shot this week.
Yeah. One more.
Next year's major championship schedule.
I'm going to roll this one. Obviously, Augusta you love. Royal St. George at the Open Championship is on the other end of the list. It's the least exciting and my least favorite of the Open rotas, and I think most people will agree there. Again, it's always fun to see the Open Championship, but Royal St. George to go from Portrush is sort of one end to the other, and that leaves TPC Harding Park, and where they'll play the PGA earlier in the year, and Wingfoot. Wingfoot's a classic U.S. Open venue. I don't remember it that well, but I think it stacks up and stands up. I think for most people I talk to, and from what I can understand, they're excited about Wingfoot. I think the PGA and everything that's happening around it, and going to a new course at TPC Harding Park, which I've played and is old school and has a great feel to it, I'm not so sure how it's going to play for a PGA championship. And it's kind of part of, again, the PGA seeking out different places to go. And sometimes that has worked, and sometimes it has really not worked. And but I think because obviously Augusta on one end, Royal St. George on the other, Wingfoot I like, Harding Park I'm not sure about, and so I'm going to roll this one.
I'm going to have to drop it. I really am. I just think that if you look at the major championship venues that we've had over the past few years, this year with Pebble Beach, and last year...
no, this year Pebble and Bethpage.
Well, this year Pebble and Bethpage, but I'm thinking about, last year we had Shinnecock, and just the venues recently have been so phenomenal. I don't see how you can do anything other than look at the 2020 schedule and say, it's a little bit of a letdown course-wise from previous years. So I'm going to drop it. It can't be it can't be Pebble Beach every year.
Right.
It can't be St. Andrews every year. So they have to move it around.
Got to have the broccoli and peas to enjoy the ice cream.
Yeah, so we're going to broccoli and peas schedule next year.
Broccoli and peas. I want fish and chips and Guinness.
Yeah. Well,
hey, a guy who's taking a trip over there, and certainly can appreciate and enjoy both of those. Rick Cleveland, the Gov, Mississippi Sports Hall of Famer, currently with Mississippi Today, one of the great living writers here in the country, is going to join us next on Play It Where It Lies to talk about his column on David Duval,
good
the
article.
Open Championship,
really good.
Tiger, Rory, and a lot more. The Gov joining me and Hack and Hank next on Play It Where It Lies.
The good, the bad, the hard in golf. This is Play It Where It Lies.
Play It Where It Lies off of the Open. We're brought to you, of course, by Gulf States Golf Cars and Deerfield Golf Club in Madison, Gluckstadt to be specific. Happy to welcome in right now the great Rick Cleveland, Mississippi Today, Mississippi Sports Hall of Famer. Rick, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great. How you guys?
Doing good, Rick. Fired up still about the Open Championship this past weekend, and I know you are as well. You watched a lot of it, and I want to start, though, with the column that you wrote on Saturday or sometime this weekend about David Duval, former world number one, shoots 91 on Thursday, and I'll let you take it from there. Just sort of, how could you sum up kind of what Duval's 2 days were and kind of what stood out to it for you?
Well, number one is the obvious. He's the former number one in the world. I mean, he's the only guy that's been number one in the world other than Tiger Woods when Tiger was in his prime. Tiger was in his prime and he was number two, and David Duval was number one. So that that says something right there. And then here we are, 20 years later, maybe not quite 20 years later, and David Duval shoots a 91 in the Open. That's 20 shots over par.
Yeah.
Which, John, and maybe you too, Henry, I guess you probably played golf in Ireland on those courses, and you can understand how that can happen.
definitely.
Absolutely.
I played Royal County Down, which reminds me a lot of Royal Portrush, and I had to make par on the 18th hole from the senior tees to shoot 89.
Yeah.
And I was hitting it pretty good that day, But the wind was blowing. When the wind, it was raining sideways. The course is so hard, but what really inspired me about Duval's story is that, so many guys would have withdrawn. would have never signed the scorecard, and it would never have been published that he shot 91. And and his I think the exact quote is, "You have an obligation as a professional athlete. If you play, you post your score. Am I happy with it? No. Is there some embarrassment to it? I don't know. But I teed off in the open and I shot 91, so put it up there on the board."
Yeah. Rick, what were your thoughts just in general on the scene in Northern Ireland, the return to Royal Portrush for the first time in 68 years, and just sort of the whole Open Championship this past week?
I loved it. You and I have talked about it a lot, John. I love those Irish golf courses anyway.
Yeah.
And I just love the whole scene. And I wasn't surprised, to see an Irish guy win it, because it's a special brand of golf. It's a special, it requires special skills, special toughness. And so I wasn't surprised to see Shane Lowry win it. I wasn't shocked at all.
Yeah.
I think I did. I wrote a column that will appear in Mississippi papers later this week about the fact that I think it was 15 of the top 19 players, top 19 finishers, were European Tour players. Which tells you something right there. It's a different game they play over there.
Yeah.
And our guys just aren't very good at it right now.
Rick, what were your impressions in terms of, when you look at the biggest Americans that obviously didn't factor? I mean, Rory Mcilroy was so much of the story going in, and we know what happened to him Thursday and Friday. But Tiger Woods, obviously, with the odds, came in 18-20-1, despite what has happened to him since the Masters, and was certainly the headline guy of the Americans that didn't finish. Are you worried about Tiger in terms of what we'll have left after the Masters win?
Yeah, I mean, I was worried about him before the Masters win, but I think there was a really good interview with him. I don't remember if I saw it on the telecast or on ESPN afterward. He said, "This is who I am right now. I'm still gonna contend in some tournaments. I'm still gonna win again, but I'm gonna have tournaments like this where I don't make the cut because of my age and the physical drain on my body."
Yeah.
And I think that's where he is right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win another major. I think it most likely would be the Masters or the PGA. I don't think his game at this point with his driving sets up that well for the U.S. Open, and it certainly doesn't set up for the British Open. But the guy that I thought going into Sunday might really shoot a low round was Koepka. I thought he had an inning, but he just never got his putter going at all.
Rick, we've talked about golf being a fickle game for Duval and for Tiger. What are your thoughts on Rory Mcilroy? It was quite an amazing weekend for him, shooting a 79 and backing up with the 65. Just what's your thoughts on Rory and his performance this weekend and going forward?
Oh, it was a great story. I was pulling hard for him to make the cut. He actually had it in his grasp. He just couldn't quite pull it off. But he was my pick going in. I have a bunch of guys that we get together before every major, and we draft golfers. And this time it was my first pick, and I picked Rory.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was.
That was over after like the first swing on one.
Yeah, but you know what? He showed in the second day that he could have won it.
Totally.
He his game sets up for those courses, and if they played again next week, I'm not sure I wouldn't pick him again.
Yeah.
Even after watching what Shane Lowry did, and that was really, really, really impressive.
And Rick,
back to Duval.
Go ahead.
Do y'all remember when he came to Jackson? Y'all remember when Duval came to Jackson?
Sure.
Yeah, played in the Viking Classic. And
Yeah.
played really well.
Yeah.
And he was really encouraged. He shot 4 straight rounds subpar. I mean, he wasn't really in contention. I think he finished like 21st or 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. But he was really encouraged by it. And I watched him play a couple times during that week. And, boy, he could still strike it. I mean, he still hit some of the most beautiful golf shots you can imagine. Very few people on the planet can ever hit it the way he did that week. He couldn't, he wasn't putting well.
Well, and that was such a good point in your column that, really stuck out to me is at that time, this was, 2006, and Duval, sort of thought, well, maybe I'm on the way back. And no, he never got back, and that was, so that was more than a decade ago, and just shows you, how tough the game can be, as, Rick pointed out, even for the world number one. Well, we turn the page, and before we let you go, Rick, we look this week on the PGA Tour, and all of a sudden, up the road in Memphis, that tournament, the St. Jude Classic, has gotten big time. I mean, it's a WGC event this year. The field is as good as you can possibly get in the game of golf. What do you make of kind of what Memphis has been able to do to get that quality of a tournament? I mean, we have ours here in Jackson. We're doing everything that we can to kind of raise its profile, but Memphis has certainly turned the screw, Rick.
Yeah, more power to them. I just hate it that if you read the Memphis newspapers, and they're more concerned that Tiger's not going to be there than they are with the field that they have. I mean, it is. You could easily make the case that it's one of the top 10 tournaments in the world now. And I'm proud for them. I just wish they'd catch a break in the weather.
Yeah.
When you have that kind of field, and you got a chance. You remember the way it was at the Viking Classic when they played it in July, and the players would finish, and there wasn't a dry piece of clothing on them.
Oh yeah.
It's brutal to walk 18 holes right now in this heat, and I wish it. The great thing about our tournament in Jackson now is the weather. They play at a time when it's fun to play golf in Mississippi, as opposed to back when we had it in July. And really, it wasn't fun to be out there watching. It wasn't fun to be out there playing.
Right.
And I'm afraid, unless they really catch a break at Memphis, it'll be that way this week.
Another great thing about golf, you can play it anywhere, any different kind of environment there is, from the wind and rain and dunes in Royal Portrush last week to hot, swampy Memphis this week. But it's going to certainly be a blast, I know, for that town to have that tournament, and I'm looking forward to it. The great Rick Cleveland, the Gov, Mississippi Today right now, Mississippi Sports Hall of Famer, with us here on Play It Where It Lies. Rick, we appreciate it. Great stuff as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Okay, John. Take care. You too, Henry.
All right,
Thanks a lot, bud. That's Rick Cleveland. Stay with us. We'll have more on Play It Where It Lies. We're brought to you by Gulf States Golf Cars and Deerfield Golf Club. The good, the bad, the hard in golf. Play it where it lies.
Golf gives and takes away. We play it where it lies.
Play It Where It Lies continues. gsgolfcars.com and deerfieldgolf.club, the two websites for our two partners, Gulf States Golf Cars and Deerfield Golf Club. Of course, this is Bash Brothers Media, Play It Where It Lies. Big thanks to Rick Cleveland for joining us, the Gov. And Henry, I refrained during the interview from having a little shit talk about getting Rick back on the course on Sunday, because he whooped our ass 2 weeks ago up in Grenada.
Yeah, and you got him back this weekend.
I did. I got him back on Sunday.
I was going to tee it up for you, but I couldn't let you do it, man.
No.
was just I knew exactly. I knew you were foaming at the bit to find out a way to get a mention in there.
When you're lucky
Gov.
enough to get to play golf with the Gov, and what a privilege it is to have someone as I said before, and I really one of the great living sports writers in the country, a hero of mine growing up. What a privilege it is to get to have Rick on the show, but also to be friends and play golf with Rick, and his knowledge of the game and his love for the game is so endless. And so you can play with it, and you can play a match, you can have some action, put some money down, but you don't shit talk the Gov.
No.
You don't do that.
No,
you know what I mean.
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
Even me, as like audacious and arrogant and like crass and cocky as I could be, I will refrain from that from Rick Cleveland.
Okay, that's fine. Let's cut this part of the segment. Let's redo the Open here, where you don't mention the fact that you beat the Rick this weekend.
Well, no, I just didn't mention it to Rick. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I can talk all I want
you can
about
put it out
now.
on the internet.
It's not like
and,
Rick's listening.
We'll
anyway,
be sure to excerpt this moment here.
Yeah, exactly. So big thanks to Rick for joining us.
Now, he hits it so good, man.
Yeah,
I tell
Rick
you what,
does. It's just this nice little butter draw every time, man. Speaking of sports writers, let's get into our Tough Lies segment right now, and I want to go back to the David Duval discussion.
Yeah.
Because one of the conversations that came out about it was I guess it was a tweet, a piece. They're probably one and the same these days, sadly, for better or worse. Yeah. But Alan Shipnuck, one of the most esteemed golf writers there is out there. I mean, a guy with as much clout and who gets the game more than just about anybody, which is what was curious here.
Always respect his commentary.
So good.
Love what he has to say.
Alan Shipnuck came out and basically, said Duval was a clown and shouldn't be. I won't say Duval was a clown. Duval was a clown for shooting that 91 and taking the spot from someone else who was deserving.
Basically, that he shouldn't have been out there if his game was so bad that he couldn't shoot better than a 91. That he shouldn't have been out there. And his line, I believe, was, "It's not just about whether you can play, whether you're allowed to play. It's about whether you should play." And that Duval should have recognized that his game was not ready to take the field at the Open Championship.
Which is a fair point, but I think Hagen Hank, it misses the point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that is the joy of the game. That is the draw and the uniqueness of the game is the fact that older guys and aged people and past champions can play. And people will point out the Masters and say, well, the thing about the Masters, and Shipnuck said this, one of his first response. Well, people say, well, you don't say this about the Masters with Ian Woosnam and Sandy Lyle. Masters, you can put in as many guys as you want.
Right. Infinite number of players on the field.
So if you qualify, you get in, and if Ian Woosnam, Sandy Lyle, and they want to dig up Charles Coody and have him play, like, they can do that too. You know what I mean? So you're not taking a spot from someone else in the Masters like you are the Open Championship. But it's David friggin' Duval. He won the tournament. He won the Open Championship. He's a former world number one. And oh, by the way, he came out the next day and shot a pretty respectable 78 and showed, what? He
beat an 87.
Yeah, beat an 87 on the final day from JB Holmes. Now, I know it was much different conditions, but the point is that, like, things like David Duval being able to come out of the booth and tee it up in the actual Open Championship and maybe have the possibility of shooting a 91. I think that's what makes the sport great. The sport that butters Alan Shipnuck's bread and that he understands as well as anybody. I think that uniqueness of the game is precisely what makes it so good. And I also think that David Duval, and this is where I wonder if it's not a little personal, because I think Duval, as much as anybody, respects the sacredness of the game, respects the tradition of the game. I don't think David Duval would go out there and tee it up if he felt like he was going to embarrass himself, if he felt like he shouldn't have been out there. A little bit is just from what we know and understand about Duval and how accountable and stand-up he is and self-aware Duval is. So I just thought that it's kind of a fair gripe, and maybe there's somebody sitting at home who really was burning about not getting in the Open Championship. But like, it's one thing if Steph Curry takes your spot. Like, we talked about that, right? You know what I mean? Giving a sponsor's exemption to a celebrity. Right. It's David Duval. He was the Open champion. He's currently with the golf champion. He does play. He showed he was good enough to play. I thought he missed the point.
I totally agree. I loved seeing David Duval. Let me tell you what, I loved seeing David Duval when he was world number one. Okay, I enjoyed his sort of like, bad to the bone, dark glasses sort of deal. I loved seeing somebody to compete against Tiger. I loved seeing David Duval 91 and all. Okay, do you think it makes the broadcast worse because there's a guy out there struggling on the course?
No, but Shipnuck's point was not about the broadcast. It's about the spot that he took.
I'm agreeing with your point, which is to say that that's part of it for me.
Yeah.
I love to see that David Duval came out there and struggled. It is not an easy game. And as you know, like he could have, if he shoots 78, we're not having this discussion. He has an awful round, an aberrational hole in which he makes a 14 and stuff.
Yeah.
But my point is, as a viewer of the game, I loved seeing Duval out there. I would love seeing where his current game was. And it reminds you how difficult this game, this course, and those conditions were. You know, everyone can't go out there. Even David Duval, who I guarantee you still hits it really, really well.
And again, and that was why his round the next day was so important to prove that he should have been out there, to prove that he, I don't know if deserved or belonged, but to prove that he belonged. I don't know about deserve to use, Snoop Pearson line in the wire. Like deserve's got nothing to do with it, except in golf. And when you're an Open champion, it does a little bit.
Well,
and he proved that he belonged.
But I do think deserve had nothing to do with it. I think you win that exemption for the rest of your life. It's one of the most awesome things that golf tournaments do. It's something that the Masters does and something that unique that the Open Championship does that gives that lifetime exemption. It is such a carrot.
Yeah.
I think more so than the millions of dollars that Shane Lowry won. I guarantee you, I wouldn't guarantee you, but I'd be willing to bet in years gone by after Shane has made his millions and millions and millions, what he will treasure from this win more than anything will not be the check. It will be that lifetime invitation to come back and play in this major year and year again.
Absolutely.
And so he earned it. He deserves it.
Yeah, and you don't hear that when Nick Faldo and Jack Nicklaus and
Tom Lehman
and Arnold Palmer shot their 85s on their last day. And again, not to trivialize it, and those numbers aren't exact, but part of it was because Duval is, not quite liked and respected quite in the same way. Henry, you just wondered kind of where Shipnuck was coming from on this because it seemed to miss the point so much from a guy. And so you wondered if it was personal, missed the point from a guy who seems to get the point spot on so many times.
I think maybe some of it has to do with Duval being a broadcaster.
Yeah.
The other guys that and the other thing I will point out that Shipnuck's point about Tom Watson and about guys like that is that they are still professional golfers.
Right.
They are still playing a regular professional tour. So I understand. I agree. My gripe is kind of. But I do think that Tom Watson coming from the senior tour where he has no chance of winning and playing irks Alan Shipnuck less than David Duval coming down from the booth and playing. So I think that has something to do with it. Let's move on. We both agree that we love seeing Duval out there. And so here's some defense of my boy David.
Well, we'll punch out and we turn the page. Although it kind of will use as a transition another tweet that got a bunch of people pissed off from a guy who's been on this show, Kyle Porter, with CBS Golf. Put out a tweet of like the Vista of Portrush and said, "Imagine they're going to be playing a golf tournament in Memphis, Tennessee next week." He's right, honestly, and you and I love Memphis now, and I've been to that tournament. But it will be quite a drastic change from Portrush to Memphis, but it's going to be a hell of a tournament. It's certainly a hell of a field.
It's a really big time field. I was shocked when you started telling me, and I hadn't in my head registered that the date of the Memphis tournament had changed, as well as the new crown of the WGC and the big time FedEx points that are coming with that. So it's a shockingly strong tournament, and for me,
it's the strongest field on tour.
Well, I mean,
other than the PGA Championship, it's the strongest field on tour. The WGCs every 4 or 5 years.
So the idea,
every 4 or 5 tournaments that they have.
The idea that we're 2.5, 3 hours away from seeing. I'm talking about the greats of the game. It's everybody minus Tiger Woods, essentially.
Sure. Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, all the great European
Holmes
players.
is going to be there.
John Rahm. Really, you name it, they will be a part of it.
So that's super exciting. I've
Tony Finau.
Now,
let's go.
Let's pack it up.
Let's make it a reservation.
Let's go, man. Tony Finau. He's criminally underrated. I haven't seen the course much. I've never been to the tournament. What can you tell me about it?
TPC Southwind, I can tell you, it's just like Rick said, it's going to be hot AF. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I heard it referred to as not TPC Southwind, but TPC Swamp Ass, which, like, walking around in Memphis in late July, it will be that.
Do you know who won that in 2010, the FedEx St. Jude? Lee Westwood.
Westwood won at
he won
St.
the
Jude.
St. Jude. Yeah, it's one of his big PGA wins.
You know, DJ's won there before. I went up there 2 years ago when Braden Thornberry contended, and what a gallery that was. That was the only time I had been to the tournament and seen the course. Southwind is a TPC course. It's a championship course. It's extremely, the conditions are perfect. The greens are big. It's again, a TPC type complex. Not the most interesting course in the world, but a ton of water and a lot of difficulty. It's not quite, the 25 under birdie fest that you see some days.
So what's the punch out here?
Well, just that it's in Memphis, and that's the PGA Tour
Just
this week.
Heads up that we have just a mind-boggling field.
Well, it's a huge change in the PGA Tour. I mean, to have this WGC event in Memphis, and I think a lot of our audience and listeners here in the Gulf South area, I'm contemplating myself, going up and checking it out.
And it is certainly sort of strange to think about that whole group, all of those golfers, their caddies, all the attendants, all the people, all those
Central
equipment
barbecue,
managers.
right downstairs.
Well, just they're all boarding planes right now in I guess Belfast probably as we speak, flying over and landing in Memphis and getting out. Yeah, and so it will be quite a change, but interesting to think about that whole world. Picking up and moving from Portrush to Memphis.
Well, and also I would just say I can't help but relate it at least partially in some way to the tournament that we have here in Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, when you talk about Jackson, Memphis, New Orleans, I mean, those cities are all grouped together. Certainly Jackson and Memphis, and it makes you think that a little bit, well, why not us if Memphis? There are reasons for that, and Jackson is not quite, again, the market Memphis is, but it's just as with this tournament, constantly struggling to find the right date and the right weather and the right field, the right sponsor to bring it all home. They have done a great job at the Sanderson Farms of elevating it. Memphis has shown what can actually happen. It's possible. I mean, that tournament went from dead St. Jude, middle of the summer, U.S. Open. It's still in the middle of the summer, but the field, it took a 180. And so I think part of it is a little bit man, if they continue to do the right things in Jackson like they're doing right now, that you can, that great, if they'll come to Memphis, they'll come to Jackson.
Well, it's exciting to see what a date change, a purse raise and a FedEx Cup big time point boost has done to a tournament, and that's what we're looking at the Sanderson Farms later in the fall. A better date, a bigger purse, more FedEx points,
better players.
It's exciting to see what St. Jude has coming, and it makes me exciting to see what the field will look like this year for Sanderson Farms.
Yeah, so a tournament for the kids, you know what I mean? It's raising money for kids with cancer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, St. Jude.
Check super excited for that, too.
Talking about Sanderson Farms and some courses here, our local game, just a couple of quick words. I've heard from people sources closer to the situation. New greens getting put in at Patrick Farms over there in Pearl Brandon line. And you and I, like Patrick Farms, play out there a good bit. It's been closed for about 2 months. I'm told that it's opening around Labor Day weekend in September, and that you talk about a facelift, it's going to be spectacular. I know a lot of people are excited for Patrick Farms to have those new greens.
Yeah, some people, Patrick Farms, doesn't always get 5 stars from everybody who plays out there. I really enjoy playing Patrick Farms.
You enjoy it because there's a mile to hit the ball this way.
Well,
it's part of it.
It's got to be.
I agree.
Look, what the best part about Patrick Farms is it's got a mile that you can hit it either way. No, it's true. I mean, I enjoy playing Patrick Farms, and I'm really excited to see. One thing that's been holding them back a little bit in past years is the greens. Condition had been suffering
that really
recently.
never recovered from the hailstorm, what you like about it is sort of working to make the golf experience, for as good as it can be. So shout out to Randy Watkins and those guys. And I know you and I are both excited about some happenings at the Refuge Golf Course, another golf course that's about to be back in play here soon.
Yeah, I mean that big hotel. If you drive down Airport Road, you can see that they've got a bunch of stories going up. From what I hear, the golf course course is super close to being ready, and we know that the improvements are going to be major.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see the whole thing. It's supposed to be fun. I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's a great piece of land and property, beautiful setting. Everybody's always one complaint. Well, it was too short, it's too tight. Again, addressing the complaints, making for a better golf experience. We're going to try to get up with Nathan Crace next week, and you and I got a chance to kind of walk around the refuge and take a tour of the whole course when Nathan was, and his crew was right in the middle of construction last year. I know he's through the moon about it, and I'm really excited to talk with them.
I'm trying to keep my expectations in check. But everything that we saw out there makes it look like it's going to be a humdinger of a course when they open it. I mean, I'm both of those courses, both Patrick Farms and the Refuge, I want to play them the very first day that I can play them.
It's a loss here, again, when we talk about it, for public golf in the Metro. That is not great to begin with. You got to drive a long way. And again, we love Deerfield so much. They're a partner of the show. I have my membership there. We'll close sort of with what's happening at Deerfield and why we didn't play there. But to have two of the closest courses and two of the only legit public courses in the Metro closed right now, is a drawback. And to think that both of them are going to be upgraded is exciting.
Yeah. That's why it's like I'm like David Duval out here. I barely get to play. I go out and shoot 91. It's not my fault.
Well, we got a chance to play on Friday afternoon. You and I got to sneak out, and we didn't go out to Deerfield because Deerfield is just aerated.
Yeah.
You and I guess, played there early in the week.
If you want to keep those greens as rolling as beautifully as they roll at Deerfield, you got to do that stuff. Yeah, so
you do.
understand.
If you're gonna have construction, you got to have barricades, and if you're gonna have nice greens, you're gonna have to sand them sometimes. So I went out to Lake Caroline instead, and just got one of those like rounds that you dream about on Friday afternoon. When you get out late in the day, you get the right tee. It's not too hot. We played right through the sunset on 18, and those are the rounds that really last with you.
Played fast, despite you doing your JB Holmes stuff all the time.
Play fast.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful round. You played pretty well. I didn't play great, although flashed a little bit at the end of the round. Sort of got it together.
Course is in phenomenal shape. It's in such good shape.
It really is. It was quite an enjoyable round.
What I love about what they've done at Caroline now is, a lot of times is not the fairway or the green, but the extension of the fairway, the cut around the greens, the neck, the chipping now. It's just like that with the sort of the run-up areas around. So shout out to Randy Watkins, certainly.
It's
and their
almost hard to duff a chip.
Even for you?
Even for me.
Even for you?
Even for me.
I don't know, man.
It's
We can
hard.
cue the tape up and maybe see it's not that
almost
hard.
hard
But
to-
no, it
yeah.
is. It's tremendous grass, man. It was really
it's beautiful.
enjoyable
The ball just clips right off.
to
It's
hit a
so
lot
nice,
hit a lot of those chip shots. Of course, when you're missing as many greens as we are, you like to have some good chipping areas.
Yeah, exactly.
To chip from. So certainly we close with some local talk, the PGA Tour every week. Great 2 weeks on the major championship in Northern Ireland, the Open for the first time. And Hack and Hank, been good sitting with you.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks.
I've enjoyed it.
We're excited to welcome Stuart, the Gent Conway, back.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed doing it. We, as you mentioned, this is pretty much, we talk golf like this, outside of this show all
You
the
had
time.
better points on here than you usually have in our conversations. I'll say that as a positive.
No, you're just willing to listen to
Right,
them
it's
on
right,
here.
exactly.
You're when we're somewhere else.
I
You're
have
just
to,
waiting for
feign
me.
like
Yeah,
there's
to
some
pretend.
sort of give and
No,
take
that's
here.
right. No, I've enjoyed talking about this. It's been a heck of a period of time to join this show.
Although, as someone said, like you've got the British guy and you don't have him for the British Open show.
We miss Stuart. We love Stuart.
We do.
I can't wait for Stuart to get back. I enjoy telling these guys what to do much better than being in this seat myself. I appreciate our viewers sticking with it.
Well, it has certainly been a great 2 weeks leading up to the Open Championship last week, and Brendan Porath, our guest, and wrapping it all up this week. And big thanks to Rick Cleveland, the Hall of Famer, the Gov, for joining us. Reminder to follow us on Bash Brothers Media on all of our social media pages. You can certainly Google us and find us on the website, bashbrothersmedia.com. You can check out the Play It Where It Lies podcast version wherever you listen and get your podcast. So for Josh the Juice,
I'm Hack and Hank.
Big shout out to the Gov, Rick Cleveland. I'm John Wiener, and we hope you'll join us next week. Play it in your car, play it on the course, nope, let's try that again. I messed it. track one more time.
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe you can just edit this out, or we just
No.
rolling, man. Play it where it lies, start to finish. Look, play it on your phone, play it in the car. You can also play it on the course. Just play it where it lies.
Thanks for joining Play It Where It Lies. Tee it up with us every week at Bash Brothers Media. Driven by Gulf States Golf Cars.